Back in 2000, Aardman produced their first stop-motion animated feature, Chicken Run. Thanks to its witty screenplay and a clever premise of a group of chickens escaping from a farm before they're turned into pies, there's a lot to appreciate in that film, and it's one I've always enjoyed returning to. And now the characters have returned in a sequel streaming on Netflix titled Chicken Run, Dawn the Nugget. With Sam Feld directing this time, it's a lot to live up to, and does it pull it off? I think it absolutely does. From the beginning, there's an interesting theme here about how to move on from an experience like that. The first movie was basically a prison of war camp story with a lot of inspiration from movies like The Great Escape and Stalag 17. However, the trauma of going through that is not something that immediately disappears, even after you escape and have found a place to live peacefully. Ginger's arc here has her still reeling from what happened and her confrontations with Mrs. Tweedy, and we see the effect that shielding all that from a daughter Molly has. Without being taught about the escape from the farm, Molly does not recognize the reason why the chickens are living on this island. As traumatic as something can be, there's still a necessity in making sure it's not forgotten by the next generation. Something that also jumped out at me was the theme that even if a group of people find a place that they can call home, that persecution does not just go away. The first Chicken Run had these sorts of thought-provoking themes as well, so these two films connect really well thematically. One of the things I really liked is when the chickens go on this rescue mission in this even more high-tech chicken farm, they each separate off into their own little subplots. They're nicely divided between them and allows the movie to keep the pace going. Ginger mainly searches for Molly and confronts Mrs. Tweedy, who's now running this new farm. It's interesting seeing them come up against each other again, and their specific reactions to coming across their biggest foe. Rocky is paired up with the rats Nick and Fletcher, and they have a funny dynamic as they go through the ducts and all sorts of secret areas. Meanwhile, Babs, Bunty, and Mac make a funny trio while Fowler is off alone and trying to prove himself. As mentioned, Mrs. Tweedy is back, and she continues to be as ruthless as ever. It makes sense that the events of the previous movie have only made her even more intent on cooking these chickens, and she has now developed a revenge for all chickens. She hates the fact that her initial coop escaped her clutches, which is why she is upgraded. Curiously, she now has a new husband, but we never find out what happened to the former Mr. Tweedy. I have questions. Did he divorce her after the years of abuse, or did she do something to him after he pushed the large door on her? I don't mind that this is unanswered, but it was certainly on the back of my mind. In any case, she already earned her place as a memorable animated villain in the first movie, and she still leaves an impression here, along with a rooting interest in hoping the chickens can stop her again. The humor continues to be on point here with several funny moments. While there are a few times it rests on repeating familiar lines from the first movie, there's still plenty of clever new material here. The visual gags are delightful, and I like how it plays with the Mission Impossible type concept of them breaking into this high-tech facility. And while it does have the chickens confronting all sorts of technologies, there is an old-fashioned feel at times too. There's a particularly great bit involving an eye scanner. The slapstick is also excellently done by the animators. As always, the animation from the folks at Aardman continues to impress. Even though there have been several advancements in the art of stop-motion animation, a few of which you can utilize for the first time in Chicken Run, that handmade touch is still there, and there's still that feeling of this scrappy group of animators in Bristol. I've always loved the look of Aardman, mostly popularized by Nick Park and his contributions to the studio. Those toothy grins are so iconic now and lend a certain goofy charm. Something that's been widely talked about is that a few voice actors are different. A few of these are understandable. Benjamin Whitrow, the voice of Fowler in the first movie, sadly passed away in 2017, but David Bradley does a more than commendable job of filling the role. Mel Gibson has also obviously been recast, with Zachary Levi voicing Rocky this time, and he slides well into the role. A lot more confusing is the decision to not have Julia Sawalha reprise her role as Ginger. If you listen to her in recent interviews, she sounds the same as she did in 2000. And even though the reason supposedly given is because of age, Thandiwe Newton is only 4 years younger. I don't get it. To give credit where it's due, I do think Newton did try her best to capture the feel of Sawalha's performance. Does it sound like her? Not really, but she gave it a game try, and it's a decent enough vocal performance. It's just odd that the decision was made at all to get someone else. And interesting enough, Julia Sawalha still gets credit for voicing Ginger in the flashback scenes that play clips from the first movie. Nick and Fletcher were also given new voices, which I also don't get. Imelda Staunton, Jane Horrocks, Miranda Richardson, and Lynn Ferguson were asked back to voice their characters and have not lost what made the performances in the first film so good, especially Richardson. I also want to shout out Bella Ramsey, who does a nice job of voicing Molly and providing the necessary spirit that makes it clear this is Ginger and Rocky's daughter. Overall, I found Chicken Run, Dawn the Nugget to be a more than worthy sequel, and features plenty what makes Aardman Productions so appealing. They managed to build on the concept and themes of the first movie and find a lot of fun things for these chickens to do. I appreciated every handcrafted minute of this movie and seeing the wonderful artistry on display. I've thoroughly enjoyed every feature film Aardman has produced, in addition to many of their shorts, and Dawn the Nugget continues to show what makes them stand out in the world of animation.